Welcome to the Unlock Wellness Podcast. I'm Dr. Casey, and I'm super pumped for today's guest. I have Rebecca Soni here today, and Rebecca is an amazing athlete. She is a two-time Olympian swimmer, six-time Olympian medalist, multiple world record holder, the first woman to earn back-to-back Olympic gold medals in the 200-meter breaststroke. She's broken the world record in the 200-meter breaststroke in both 2008 and 2012. Also, the first woman in history to break the 220 barrier in the 200-meter breaststroke. Six-time NCAA champion at USC, two-time World Swimmer of the Year 2010 and 2011. She's killing it, and she's one of the most elite and accomplished Olympic athlete of all time. But her story doesn't just end there. So, for most Olympic or professional athletes, it becomes a struggle to really figure out those next steps after retirement. They're used to intense training and coaching and structure, but Rebecca's really found a way to, really blend everything together that she loves to create her own future. And she's making a huge impact on the lives of young athletes, especially with, through her mentoring company called Rise Elite Athletes. And Rebecca, thank you so much for making time to come on the podcast and talk about your story and everything you've been working on.
It's my pleasure. I'm excited to dive into all of it.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
No problem. I first heard everything that you were doing actually on Rich Roll's podcast a long time ago, and I'm super jealous of that too. He's so amazing. I love Rich. I've been listening to him for a long time. He's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. It was a really fun podcast to do as well, because he's huge into swimming and He loved it. And I know there was a while there we were talking about swimming and the history of breaststrokers and Hungarians, and I was like, dude, you're out of my realm of knowledge. This is all you. I don't know anything you're talking about at this point.
That's
but
awesome.
It was cool to have. Yeah, he really appreciated swimming.
Right?
Obviously,
I was looking at the dates of that, and it was crazy because that was 2014. That interview, isn't that insane?
Crazy, right?
Right. I know. I've been following you since then. So I was thinking about that. I was like, man, for 3 years, but like, it's been really cool to see, everything that you're doing and how it's evolving. Because I know when you talked to him, it was kind of like, in the beginning stages, and like just seeing what you're doing now with Rise Elite is just really cool.
Yeah, that's great. So you got to follow the whole evolution of it.
Right. So if you just want to kind of walk people through, because I know, I've been following you for a while, and just to give people an overview of, kind of your journey, with your swimming and how it's really led up to like where you are now. Because I know it's been a journey for you, definitely.
Yeah, it definitely has. And I think, a lot of people were asking me after I retired, like, why did you walk away from swimming when you were on top? I was like, well, that's exactly why. I knew going into London 2012 that would be the end for me of my swimming career. That would be my last competition. Of course I questioned it a little bit after the fact, when you're in the middle of the struggle of what do I do next? And there was, of course, a glimmer of should I go back or anything like that. But, deep down in my heart, I knew that I'd given it my all, and I really both physically gave it my all. My body was saying, all right, I've had enough of this.
Right.
And for me, probably the biggest thing as well was, I just felt like I didn't have more to give. I think, of course you can keep training and you can keep striving, but for me, I'd reached the end of my swimming story. I knew that even if I'd come back the next Olympics, I could only do the same. I could only do a gold medal and a world record. I mean, that's amazing. And even that probably wouldn't have been very easy at all. It probably would have been a lot challenging than my 2 Olympics that I did do, but it would be coming back into a position of expectation. Like if I didn't do that, then it would be a disappointment. If I did do that, it would just be like
expected,
okay.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, and I kind of watched that with Michael Phelps in his, post after his eight gold medals in Beijing, and that, he came back and it's like, oh, he's just a normal
Right.
right? Like, oh, as if that's bad, right? It's still
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. He's still, and then he came back again to do amazing things in the pool. But, people still were like, oh, but he's not the same. Well, what do you expect?
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
it's been
there's
4 more years. Like that's
right.
such. I mean, like I can't imagine like the stress like on your body and not
Mhm.
just your body. And I know this is why you wanted to start Rise is the just having to go through all of that and like the mindset that you have to maintain for all of those years of training. It's just insane.
Yeah, it is. And something along those lines, well, two things. One is, I was really lucky in my career. I think that there was a big gap in American breaststrokers and in general the world of swimming. Females breaststroke was a little bit, behind what it should have been, I thought. And so I had this huge gap to be to be kind of one of the fastest in
Yeah.
that realm.
Why do you think that? Do you think just because they weren't
Honestly,
training for that,
no,
or
absolutely not. No, I think, when it comes to the Olympics, pretty much every athlete there is training at the same intense level, if not, the ones that win are not the ones that train the hardest. Everybody's training the hardest. Everybody wants it more than anything. But what makes the difference, I think for me, something that helped, because this is why I got into the mindset stuff. It was all the mindset that I developed over my whole swimming career, which I didn't realize at the time. But looking back, I was never the kind of swimmer that analyzed anybody else's times or strokes or techniques or pace or anything like that. I didn't know what anyone else was doing. I didn't know what the world record was.
yeah,
I mean, maybe, when I was really close to it, then yeah, I knew. But I wasn't looking to others to see what was possible. And I think that is a really interesting mental thing that happens is that once we see what's possible, once we see someone else doing something, it all of a sudden becomes possible. Let's take Michael Phelps, for example. He was so far ahead and he was, putting up these times that were absolutely amazing. But 4 years later, there's a whole fleet of
right.
young guns that are doing those times because they've seen it's possible. Now they can do it. So I think, at least from my perspective, it took me not being more internally focused rather than focusing on the outside and what other people were doing and their times. That let me not set a limit on what's possible time-wise. I just kept pushing for faster, and that allowed me to go faster. And so that's at least, one way of looking at it, or one theory. And then I set that bar and 4 years later, there were 8 girls that were going around the same time. So it's amazing. I mean, that's just the progression of sports. But once we see what's possible, the field catches up, right?
Exactly.
It's like the 4-minute mile.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, the 4-minute
exactly.
mile is just, I mean, they said it was impossible. And then all of a sudden,
A bunch
everybody did it. Exactly.
Right. Yeah, so it's really interesting. But so I had this feeling of everyone's going to catch up, and I'm kind of feeling that I'm ready to be done. And so I gave it all in 2012, and even there, I was not feeling physically. My body was, I had some injuries going on and whatnot. So it just was, it was time. And so I wanted more. I felt like I'd accomplished all my challenges in swimming, and there wasn't really much left to challenge myself with. And I was so mentally driven by the idea of breaking 220 in the 200 breaststroke. That was my goal. And I got that in London. And so it's like, what now? Do I just pick a new number?
Do I go to 218? Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, my heart wasn't in it because I'd achieved what my heart wanted and what I, set out to do. So yeah, I just knew it was time. It was time to tackle other obstacles and to start building Rebecca outside of the pool.
Right. Which I'm sure that was, that has to be like a scary thing to do, especially when people expect you to come back, like you were saying. And just the internal stuff, just from hearing all the outside voices, like that has to be really hard.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've heard a lot about, athletes going into or coming out of their sport and going into retirement, and the the depression that comes with that. And it's real. It's intense.
I
It's a
believe
lot.
it.
There were days when, and I purposely didn't jump into anything else, a job or career. I didn't pursue, jumping into that because I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I was so focused on swimming that I hadn't had time to explore what's out there in the world. And I'm not just going to jump into something and not, explore a little bit about what actually is interesting to me.
Exactly.
I really had nothing. So I took a little bit of time, and I there were days when I was laying in bed thinking like, I have no reason to get up. I was really thankful for my dog at that time. Because like, well, you got to take the dog out.
I've seen a picture of your dog. It's super cute.
Oh yeah, he's all over my Instagram.
Was it hard for you to like watch this last Olympics, or were you just like kind of relieved that you didn't have to put yourself through all of the pressure?
No, it definitely was not hard. Once I came out the other end of this so-called depression, and it's still, I still wouldn't say definitely found my purpose in life and all that. It's still up and down and still exploring and still having fun with things, but I definitely am very happy with my decision.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I really feel like I gave it my all, and I did watch a little bit of Rio, and it was fun to see teammates and to meet the new faces of the swim team, but at the same time, it was hard to just watch on TV. It wasn't, it was late at night, and it wasn't as, you didn't really feel it the same way as being there. So
right. You were able to like disconnect from it a little bit.
I just ended up looking up the results.
Yeah.
It was, but yeah, no, I really am happy with my decision. I very rarely at this point am like, oh, I wish I was still doing that, because I've set other challenges for myself, and as much as I truly do appreciate and feel so lucky to have experienced what I did experience with the Olympics and go through all of that and to be part, like, it still takes me back sometimes. Like, I'm an Olympian, I have a gold medal. Like, that's insane. That's crazy. And I almost don't believe it sometimes.
Yeah.
But I definitely.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I definitely, am satisfied being having had it, having accomplished it, and having it in my past, and I really don't feel the need to like, I wish I was there or anything like that.
Gotcha. Yeah, what you were saying, just like having where you do have like that mental capacity to like to train, like to have a goal and then to train towards it. I mean, that has to like. I bet that benefits you so much. Like you were saying, you have new goals now. Like having something to work towards, it's no different. Like you have to have that right mindset, and you have to have like the vision of what you're trying to accomplish. Mm-hmm. And I remember on the Rich Roll podcast, you were talking about like you had never made like a vision board. So like that was like your new thing. Yeah. Have you kept up with that?
Let's see. So I do it in a different way. I don't necessarily have images on my wall, but I always think, oh, I should. But I've definitely taken, the goal setting aspects of that, and I use that very often, whether it's monthly goals or, big picture. But I definitely do have to stop myself at times and say, okay, where are you going? What's the direction that you're heading? What does it look like when you get there? Because that's just not how my mind works. It's not how it was, built to work. And so I do notice that my tendency is to lose track of that and to just get stuck in the daily habits and run on the treadmill. But I have to constantly remind myself to think big picture, and it's hard. I see how hard it is, and like, if it's hard now, then how are you ever going to get there, right? If you don't know what it looks like now, then you're obviously not moving in that direction. So it's really hard, and it's really important.
Yeah, definitely. Did you what was the hardest part, like keeping the right mindset during all of that? Because I know like probably in between the two Olympics, like you were saying, like the more Olympics you do, there's more expectations, so it's harder. So I guess like what was the biggest thing you've learned, like as far as keeping that sharp focus that you've been able to like teach to these younger athletes? Because I'm sure you have like a whole wealth of knowledge of like on the biggest platform ever. So I mean, you have you know what you're talking about, and I'm sure they respect that and listen. So I guess what was your biggest takeaway What was your biggest mindset block, I guess, in between the two?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, I'm sure there's a lot more here, but uh, between the two Olympics, it certainly was challenging. And I think the most challenging time was about the year after Beijing. Was it really this like you come off of this huge high and all of a sudden nothing feels as purposeful, as exciting. You're in the pool, trying to do pace, and it's just like, well, I don't really care if I don't do it, right?
Yeah.
And so that was a very challenging time, just deciding to continue, deciding that my passion was still here. And that took a little time for sure. But the first thing that really came to mind was I had to learn how to have fun with it again. We have this idea in our heads, and, kids and anybody looking at an Olympian or wanting to be an Olympian, we have this idea of, this focused athlete and the athlete that's, headphones on and, staring into space, most likely visualizing their race to perfection and controlling every minor detail. But what I've found is it has to be this combo of focus and fun. It has to have this, you put in the work, you do the focus, you do the visualizing before. The whole, your whole entire training is about what you're thinking then. It's about how you're visualizing when you're training. It's about how you're taking care of yourself when you're training. And then come race time, you have to let go of it a little bit. It's a perfect balance. You have to be equally focused, but also letting go enough to, find what you hear all the time, athletes saying, oh, it was in the zone, right? In that place where I wasn't necessarily in control anymore. It feels like, I'm just going through the motions and it's just happening instead of me controlling it. And so to me, the most interesting thing is you do have to let go. You do have to let your body take control and do what you've trained it to do. And that's why I think it's amazing I think that's one of the reasons that USA is so strong in swimming, especially. I mean, I can really only speak for swimming, is we have that amazing team aspect. We come from a country where we have, this American college system with athletics and with swimming, especially, and in particular, I know I can only speak for that, but, we have really intense rivalries and we have team bonding and these things that carry over to the Olympic team once it's selected. And we create this environment where we're not only racing for ourselves, but for our team and our country. And we have this really big camaraderie, and that comes with having a lot of fun. Yeah. And so I think that fun factor is really, really important. Even more so than, you have to be super serious. It has to be a balance. Right. And I think that can be surprising to young athletes, especially, who think, oh, I just need to control everything, what I eat, how I sleep, how much water I'm drinking, every bit of my training. And I have to be like, so serious.
Robot. Well, like,
yeah. Can you really see yourself doing that? Cause I can't.
No, definitely not. That would be miserable if it was like that all of the time. So do you see that are you seeing just the USA team actually having a little bit of fun, or is that a common thing to see, people relaxed and enjoying themselves, or is that super rare?
Well, I think that not necessarily rare, and it's not necessarily relaxed.
Yeah, it's as relaxed as you could be at the right at the Olympics.
It's definitely having fun, but not letting it all rip and whatever happens, I don't care. Obviously you care. Yeah. But I think something about the team relationship with USA. I mean, we're obviously such a big team as well for swimming compared to, I think only Australia probably has as big of a team, and, China, and maybe the top 5-6 countries. The rest are a lot smaller. But Yeah, there's so much. We turn it into a college dual meet. We turn it into a team thing where we love our teammates and we care as much about their races as we do, our own, and that definitely is pretty unique. I think
And
it makes it
it's a
a whole
cool
lot of
mix
fun.
because like, you've
Mhm.
probably seen a lot of these swimmers like as
Mhm.
race through college and
They
stuff.
were your
So
rivals, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
go from so-called hating them to they're your teammates, and
Right.
it's amazing. It's a really amazing bond to share with them, and then you come back to your college season and your rivals again, your
Right.
competitors.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. So before we get into like talking about more about what you're doing with Rise Elite, I wanted to touch on the nutrition aspect of a little bit too because I know
Mhm.
like you did switch to to a vegan plant based. That was
Mhm.
after the Olympics, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what made that like what led you to that decision? I made that same decision for myself about a year and a half ago, and I love it
Okay.
so much.
Yeah,
But I
that's
think
great.
it's a lot of athletes don't want to pick it up because they don't fully understand it, or it's just something we've been programmed to think like you're not getting enough protein, so you're going to just deplete,
Sure.
So just
Yeah.
want to kind of hear your opinion on it and
Mhm.
how it's helped you.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't try it sooner, that I didn't try it as a so-called professional athlete, because I felt how much better my body feels. And I just
Yeah.
can only imagine how much better I would have felt training and whatnot. But from my perspective, I never had really thought about it until I was retired. And, I think that goes to just the general public knowledge about nutrition and how, let's just imagine the my plate or the pyramid or whatever they use these days, where
Right.
it's like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, like you have to have this balance, and that was just accepted, right? And so I never really thought too much about it, and I certainly never really took the time to research and look into it until I was out of swimming. And honestly, the biggest motivator for me at that time was, as a swimmer who trains a lot, and then all of a sudden you're not training a lot. And I think especially for women who, our metabolism slows down, and then all of a sudden you're gaining weight, right? So
Hmm.
I was definitely afraid of this weight gaining thing, and then at the same time, I felt like I'd been so used to eating so much food, like quantity
How
wise.
many like do you have like I'm sure you had like a hardcore calorie count like
No, absolutely not. I've never counted calories in my life.
okay, yeah.
I was never like, oh, I have to be really strict about my nutrition ever.
Gotcha. You
I
just hear
was
those like
never
you hear those like Michael Phelps stories where
sure.
it's like,
Well, yeah.
yeah,
And that's not necessarily true either.
gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely ate a lot. It got less and less because I was training. I was competing until 25. So around 2021, I could definitely notice a shift, and I can't eat all that much. So I did have to adjust as I got older because my body was not, it's not
Hmm.
the same when you're 25 versus when you're 15. So I was, not eating as much as when I was really young, but I was still, eating a lot. I don't know how many calories, but not nothing super absurd.
Nothing crazy. Yeah.
But I definitely ate a lot, and it's especially when you grow up with that. To me, that was the definition of eating a
Yeah.
lot. And so it definitely there was a satisfaction level that just wasn't attained if I was not eating a lot. And so I felt very unsatisfied, and I was gaining weight, and it was very, uncomfortable. So I thought, what's the best way that I can still eat a lot, but not gain weight? And so I started to, well, even before I questioned that, naturally, I always loved the so-called side dishes much better. I loved the vegetables. I
Yeah.
loved, the salads and the fresh stuff and the fruits and vegetables. So as I finished swimming, I stopped doing anything that I had to do and just focused on the things that I actually liked. So I think I naturally gave up meat without really realizing it. And the last thing that made me say, "Oh, I'm almost vegan," was eggs. And so
Yeah.
that was the point when I was like, "Well, let me just try. Let me just see what this whole vegan thing's all about." And I obviously loved it because I've been doing it for almost 4 years now. But it started with that feeling of I want to eat more quantity, and I don't want to feel like I'm suppressing, the idea of a
Right.
diet of restricted calories or whatever. And I hate the whole calories thing. It
I
drives me
do
crazy.
too. Man.
Like absolutely just boils my blood. But I wanted to also, I love cooking and I love to be creative in the kitchen, and I wanted to explore different ways of doing things, and I loved vegan for that as well. It's like, oh, you want to make a pizza? Well, learn how to make a cauliflower crust or a quinoa crust, or, just doing things a little bit
Exactly.
differently. And you learn about different vegetables and more, like the amount of abundance and color that came into my life as a result. Like I never ever felt restricted or like I couldn't have this and that was a bad thing. If anything else, it also gave me a good, um, like parameters to follow by, because I'm sure you know what it's like. You go to a party and there's a plate of cookies, and I spend the whole night like staring at the cookies. Should I
Yeah.
or shouldn't I? And then, once I have one, the whole thing's mine. Like
Right. It's over. It's over.
But all of a sudden, I had this set of parameters, like, oh, I can't because it's not vegan, and then it was like, all right, easy. Now that debate is gone. I don't have to sit here and like.
There's no maybes about it. Like
Yeah.
I noticed the exact same thing, and it really makes it's like if let's say beforehand, same thing. Like you go like let's say you're like with the friends and you're at a fast food restaurant, like okay, I might get this, but then it turns into like three things. But like if you're not eating it, it's quick. I mean, it's easy. There's no there's no maybes. It's either yes or no, right?
Right, exactly. And by doing that, that removes the I guess the want or the desire or the pain that comes with not having it, the restriction. So it makes it a lot easier. And so it definitely started with that and with my health, and I knew that I was making a good decision for my health. And as I started to learn more, it became about everything. It became about the animals. It became about the, ecological, consequences of what we're doing. And so I've, evolved into adopting all of those and really bringing that in as my value system. And it's probably, it's obviously was life-changing decision. And it's the thing I identify with the most at this point is the value systems of being vegan, of being good to the planet, and respecting all all people, all creatures, and just enjoying this world that we get to live on.
Yeah, I mean, there's really no negative side effect that comes from adopting it, in any of the aspects, like you said, in the environment, or I mean, it's all positive, which is awesome. And like for me, like I had a baby a year ago, and that's after I did that. That's when I adopted eating like that. Afterwards, and like I mean, the difference it's made, like I just the weight just came off so quickly after I had her, and like just notice. I mean, it feels so much better, like 20 pounds less than pre-pregnancy weight, just like that, and I just feel so great. I mean, you really just notice it, and like you were saying, you wish you would have adopted it earlier into your athletic career. Like I wish I would have done it the whole pregnancy.
Yeah.
It's just, but I mean, but just having it now though, I mean, I think we're both about the same age, but like, I mean, we have so much longer that we get to enjoy it, like, and just enjoy the benefits and stuff. So I think it's really awesome too.
Yeah.
Have any of your athletes like asked about it or anything like that? Like, do you do any like nutritional training through your company?
No, I don't, because I don't feel that knowledgeable. I'm more similar to how I approach swimming. I go by feeling. And so while I enjoy doing it that way, and exploring, what's my body craving and how, I don't know the science behind it as well as I would like to if I were coaching nutritionally. So I just, if athletes ask me about it, I'm happy to sit down and chat about my experiences, but I'm really clear about, I don't know the science, and I truly believe this with all my heart, but I can't sit here and, give you any statistics or facts. And, so while my recommendation is always just bring in more fruits and vegetables, like with the more of that. And then with the rest of your diet, you'll figure it out.
Until your Rebecca Soni cookbook comes out, and then then you can start getting them that for sure.
Yeah.
So like when did you decide, like, because I know you went in to make your company Rise Elite, like you did
Yeah.
that with one of your friends, right?
Yeah, with Caroline Burkle. She's a fellow Olympian. We were actually in the same roommate suite in 2008 in Beijing, so we've known each other for a long time. And yeah, she went to Beijing. She trained for a couple more years before she, hung up her suit cap and goggles. And then she went to grad school for sports psychology. And so she's been in this field and has a lot more, uh, education, formal education in all of this stuff. So it seemed like a great fit. We were both, wanting to make an impact, and we really connected about the things that I think the thing that brought us together in the first place was we were talking about all these things that we were learning post swimming with the whole, I wish we'd known this when we were swimming. I wish the athletes, knew what they were doing to their bodies when they're training, and that there was a little bit more mindfulness in our training. But and so we connected with that and sharing things that we were learning and the desire to do something with it.
Right.
So I had been I picked up the mentoring a little bit before that was the first step. I really wanted to make use of my knowledge, but I mentioned briefly earlier that in swimming I wasn't technical. I was all feeling based. Right. I know how it feels, and how to find what you're feeling, but I don't know drills, and I don't know if I'm watching a young kid swim. I literally have nothing to tell you,
like technique and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have an eye for that. And that wasn't the kind of swimmer that I was at all. And so I would, typical Olympian after retirement thought, I was doing a lot of swim lessons and clinics, and you get asked to do a lot of stuff like that. And it's great to meet the community. But I felt like, honestly, I felt like kind of an idiot doing these things. I was like, I'm just making stuff up. And I feel like I'm not helping these people, but at the same time, I feel like there should be something that I know because I'm an Olympian, apparently. Right. But so it took me a while to sort through that. And, I built this kind of resentment towards clinics and lessons just because I felt so stupid while I was doing them. And I just didn't feel good. Yeah. And I soon realized that, what made me great was not my physical stuff. It was the mental stuff. And at the same time, I was also trying to figure out my life, and I was going through that feeling of, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do anything. All I know how to do is swim. And so I sat down and thought, there has to be a common skill set here. The same things that made you good at swimming are the same things that make anybody good at anything, whether it's business people being good at business, whether it's yoga teachers being good at teaching yoga. It's the same like core foundational elements, and that I wanted to almost harvest that. So I sat down and I created like almost a course for myself, for how, what did you do well in swimming and how do you do this and other things. And as I was creating this, I realized, well, this would be an amazing thing to teach to young athletes. Duh. And starting to see that this whole mental side, we tend to just take what we're given and say, you have it or you don't. This is a confident athlete. That's not. And it was like period, end of sentence. But really, I was starting to see this door open up that says, hey, you can train that. That's trainable. That grows, that builds, that develops. The same way that you do drills in the pool, that you do the same reason you practice every day for 4 hours, right? You're practicing your physical stuff, but at the same time, you should be practicing your mental stuff, right? And it can literally be at the same time. Yeah. I realized that I was a great swimmer because in the pool, not in racing, but in practice, I had the right mindset, right? And so anyway, I quickly, realized that it was this mental stuff. And so I connected with a couple of families and young athletes that I would meet with them weekly on Skype, and we would talk about mindset and just general stuff as well. So that started, maybe a year or so after the Olympics, a little bit more. And I just started with, I'm just coaching, but in a different way. And so when Caroline and I connected, it was, because I realized I'm only one person and I can only really impact a handful of young athletes. And there's something here that should be bigger, but I can't do it all. And so Caroline and I came together. She was the first additional mentor in this whole platform. And then I quickly asked her to come on and hey, let's make this a bigger thing. We really needed each other in the sense that we're such different minds that we perfectly like come together like puzzle pieces that we fill in each other's weak spots, and it's a really amazing. It's been really cool to see how it evolved, but it quickly. So we came together in 2015. That was when we so-called launched Rise Elite Athletes, and we started to bring in more mentors and bring in more athletes, and so it became this amazing thing. And the whole idea behind it well, there's a lot of ideas behind it, but core idea is we want to bring in Olympians. At this point, they're all retired Olympians. So the awesome thing is we get to work with all our friends, our peers.
Well, that helps, them with their journey too, is, they're retired and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we were learning so much and it was helping us in our lives. End of sentence. We wanted to bring in other people and connect with them and in turn make our lives and their lives more rich and more, we're learning a lot. We want to share that with them. And then as we share with them, and, we do have a training for our mentors to go through, and we're based a lot in positive psychology. We have a lot of input from all these different sources. So, it is a science-backed program. They go through the training. We get to connect and relate with all these things that we're experiencing as, late 20s, 30, early 30s, or whatever age, retired Olympic athletes. And so we have this whole connection thing. And that to me is the most exciting part for me personally. This is where a big reward for me is to connect with these other Olympians. And then, they take that knowledge and they bring it to kids all over the country, all over the world. And it's a really, really, it's like this ripple effect. We help the Olympians, they help the kids, and then those kids end up like helping their teams. And I love when a parent comes back and is like, yeah, my son or my daughter has been coaching his friends about what you worked on.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. So it just, we wanted to insert mindfulness, let's say. I know it's an overused term, but we wanted to insert that into the sporting world because it's catching on in the world in general. And so I think, sports will really benefit from bringing that into.
Right. And just being like proactive about it, because people wait till there's a problem. I mean, not just with minds, I mean, with anything, obviously with health, with, with injuries, but, instead of just being proactive, they wait till there's an issue. And I think what you're doing is so cool because you're helping them like before there's an issue. And I think that's what made you so successful. I mean, probably, right?
Well, it wasn't intentional. I think I naturally developed a good mindset. Like I said, I totally count on that as my biggest strength in swimming was the mental side. And I didn't really intentionally do that. And I think it's very cool to offer that to athletes now and to insert that a lot earlier in life. And I tell my kids all the time, like, hey, you're learning this like 20 years earlier than I did. So you're really lucky that, and we do relate. We don't just talk about swimming. We don't just talk about, they're athletes of all sports, by the way. We don't just work with
I was going to ask you, is it athletes that are like training to be Olympians or just throughout the whole spectrum?
The whole spectrum. Okay. So our criteria is 13 and up because obviously we speak about the mental aspects and around, before 13, it's a lot of rainbows and butterflies. Like things are great, right? But you get to 13 or, it depends on the emotional maturity of, I've worked with some younger kids that are, so emotionally mature. It's amazing. But we like that athlete that's at the point like, what happened? This used to be fun. Or what happened? All of a sudden I'm a nervous wreck and I can't contain myself and I can't perform.
Mm-hmm.
So we like to work with those athletes. But yeah, we work with athletes of all sports. And, obviously we have a lot of swimmers because we're both swimmers, but we have now mentors outside of swimming. We have 2 water polo players at the moment. We're looking to, hopefully get mentors of all different sports in the future as we continue to grow. But it's not just about swimming. And we found that it's extremely easy to relate to any sport. It really is. Because we're not talking about the sport itself. Of course, we do from time to time, and we ideally will have mentors as the same sport as the athlete. Obviously, that has a benefit. but
Right.
But in the beginning process, as we've been growing and, we work with athletes of different sports, whether it's tennis, whether it's track, we found that there's really so much in common when you look at the mental side that we've never had this feeling of, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, or, oh, I can't help you. It's so similar. It's literally the same thing. And that same thing is the same thing for after sports, for outside of sports, for how to deal with, their social situations at school and managing drama and
Mm-hmm.
whatever else comes up. Because we talk about all sorts of stuff. It's certainly not just, swimming and performance. And that's a great thing in and of itself, because a lot of times we think that my swimming is only a reflection, my racing is only a reflection of my swimming training, but not necessarily. Like,
Right.
it could be, I've worked with a girl in college, and she's talking about how she's just not pumped for this big meet, and she doesn't know why, and I've been training so well, and it comes down to the fact that there's this boyfriend, right? That
Mm-hmm.
it's like, you start to realize that it's emotional, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our emotional state has so much to do with how we perform. And so we look at the whole end of the spectrum of everything that's going on. I learn something every session that I do with my kids. I learn from them, and it's an amazing experience. And that's, why I love bringing new mentors in as well, because they start to see that too.
Yeah.
Like, we're giving so much and we're getting so much as well. And it's a pretty cool thing.
Just really, I mean, it's got to be really rewarding. Definitely. Are you seeing, like, with a lot of these young athletes, like, is it, or like for, like, we talked about your, common mindset blocks. Are you seeing mainly just like fear, like, or what are you seeing the most of?
Yeah, pressure.
Okay.
I think by far the most is pressure, expectation. I think, as the amount of things that these kids have to take on, it's insane. The school load, they're doing music, they're doing sport, they're doing so much, and then they have their coaches' expectations, they have their parents' expectations, and then they have their own, and it's just a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
and as we put pressure on ourselves, they're not having fun. Their confidence is shattered. They have anxiety. They have, and all that stuff comes out at race time.
Yeah.
And they feel like they can't perform. But I think it comes down to expectation. Really, was in general. I see a trend where athletes are just not having fun. They're just not having fun with their sport. And again, what we were talking about earlier, that balance of focus and fun, they think that in order to get there, I just have to be so serious. And in doing so, they put pressure, they get anxiety, all those things. And so, yeah, it's by far, I think, the thing that I've noticed most.
Yeah. It's super interesting. Like, I mean, I was thinking about this before we got on the call. It's just like, physiologically, like, you're only born with 2 fears. You're born with the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. So, like, everything else is created. So it's like, all of these outside voices, whether, it's you hear something negative from a coach, or, if you have a parent that's not supportive, or like you said, like a boyfriend, like, everything is just created, and it's all like coming from an outside source, and it's not really, who you are. So I just think that's just super, like, interesting.
Yeah, and once you shine a light on that and start to talk about that and start to notice what the thoughts are that are passing through your mind, you realize that it's all just this, show that's going on. And then you start to distance yourself and realize, yeah, that's not me. That's not necessarily the way it has to be. But before you shine that light in there, you just take what you're given, and you take that anxiety and think, this is just the way that I am.
Right.
And so it's pretty amazing what just a little bit of focus on our thoughts can do for us. And it's so hard. It's amazing. It's so logically simple, but
Yeah.
it's so executingly hard. Like I love working with these kids because it's a constant reminder of what I need to be working on and what I could be working on. So I regularly find myself being like, all right, here's your thing to work on this week, but I'm going to be working on this too. So I'm excited to connect with you next week because we can compare notes and
Right.
see how it went.
Yeah. Are you like, do you notice that the kids will actually like, actually like how does it work? Do they have like weekly assignments and then you guys just go over it? Like, what does a typical like training program look like?
In general, our program we have 3 seasons per year. So our program is 1 season of training, so-called training. And that season is 14 weeks, weekly calls on Skype. So we have the video face-to-face connection, and they're 30 minutes. So it's not too long where the kid is like dozing off.
Yeah.
They have a quick attention spans, but it's very personal to each athlete. So while we do have, a ton of exercises, we have this whole library of, mental exercises that we do and with the athletes, and we have topics, and we have so much. But when it comes down to it, it's connecting with the athlete and determining what do they need right now. And so each athlete is different. We try to really be noticing, how does this athlete learn best? Are they an artsy kid? Do they like to do things with their hands? Do they like to draw? Or are they wordy? Do they like to write? Do they like to have lists and neatly organized? So we figure out how that works for them. And then, we have an amazing, like I said, resource of exercises, and we just, we leave the athlete with this exercise to work on through the week. Because essentially the reason that we do 14 weeks and that we do a whole season of training is that, you do one session, you're just left with motivation, and that fades. But over, how long does it take to make a change? Some people say 30 days, some people say 3 months, but you need constant, change is easy if it's just, repetition over time. You just do something, and you do something over time, all the time. That's why we practice. And, once is never enough. And so we ask that they work on whatever it is that we leave them with throughout the week. And then we check in with that the following week and see where they're at that week, and again, repeat the process. But as far as the exercises go, it ranges. Sometimes they are writing and checking in with some thought daily. Sometimes they're more executing. So if I have an athlete that never remembers to write their list of whatever exercise I've given them, then we just make it more physical, tangible. All right, every time you're in practice, I want you to set a reminder to think about, 10 positive things before you get in the water. Or in the middle of practice, notice when you think negative thoughts, right? Start noticing your thoughts. And after the fact, really be conscious of those thoughts. And so once, it's at that point, it's not homework, right? They're not sitting down with a pen and paper. They're just executing.
Just being aware.
But it'll be a really strict, so-called exercise. So they're clear on if they did it or if they didn't. So essentially they're just training. They're just practicing what we worked on, and then the next week we assess it and see how it went, and we either dive deeper or move on to another topic. So they're left with a lot of insight into, okay, you don't like how this is going. Instead of just complaining about it, now I know what I can do about it. Now I know how easy it is to make a shift and to make a change. So the homework is pretty minimal, because you're just practice, and a lot of times you're doing it while you're doing other stuff like training.
Just kind of mixing it in and like making it all one thing, because it really is just all one thing.
And we are big on writing and written exercises, and that has a fantastic result, because it's like any practice. You bring in meditation practice, well, you're taking time out to tune in, right? And same with writing. You're taking time out of your busy day to slow down, because kids never slow down. It's like running here, running there, running there. And then they just like collapse in front of Netflix, right? And then don't think anything. But these exercises they're really fun too, because they're learning about themselves. They're not learning about some ambiguous thing in school that has nothing to do with them. But they're actually learning about themselves. And so it becomes really fun, but it's a timeout, right? It's a timeout from your day to reflect and to think about and work on and build and make improvements. And so, I certainly really love doing that stuff. And I know my kids really do a lot too.
Yeah. I mean, it just sets them up for success. And like you said, like they can use that in any aspect of their life. I mean, forever. So that's just so awesome. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, good. Thank you. We're having a blast doing it, definitely.
So what's new for Rise Elite? I know I saw on your one of your pages you guys hired some new mentors. Like, so what's in the future for Rise?
Yeah, we have a team of 10 mentors at this time. We just are bringing in our first 2 water polo players, so we're really excited to have them on board. And so in the future, we have a lot going on. At this point, we are focused on our mentoring program, and that's, our one product, and that's definitely going to remain the core of Rise. But we definitely want to branch out and bring just more and more awareness into this whole field. And, we have a lot of exciting stuff that we're planning. We're doing a little bit of a relaunch of our whole website and whatnot. That's all coming up soon. And we just want to keep spreading the word and bringing more mentors and more athletes into the program, and hopefully do some events in the future. And we got a lot. We definitely have a lot of excited stuff.
I'm excited to watch as you guys, like I said, I've been watching for a while, and it's evolved so awesome. And I know it's just going to continue to grow and get more momentum. So I'm excited for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're having a blast.
Awesome. Well, I think we're at a good place to wrap it up. I just thank you so much for coming on. What's the best place for people to follow you and follow Rise on social media, website, all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So our social media, Instagram is at The Rise Life. And from there, you can easily find our website and whatnot. But The Rise Life Instagram, you can follow me at, my handle on all accounts is Reb Soni, R-E-B Soni. That's my personal stuff. But yeah, you can pretty much get anywhere from social media. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Definitely check out Rebecca's social media. Definitely check out the Rise Life and see what they're up to. And if you have, if you're a coach or a parent and you want to get your child involved in what they're doing, feel free to reach out to her. I guess you have your email is on the site, I'm sure.
Yeah. So if you're interested, there's a contact form, and you just email us. We'll chat with you and figure out what's the best options.
Awesome. Well, check out what she's doing, and thank you so much for coming on.